Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of the weekly Daily podcast. It is I, Ben Dailey, giving you the weekly gossip in my life. Is it I or it is me? There's an English question that I'm not sure on. I used to teach English. Okay, I used to teach English online to foreign. I taught English as a foreign language, so to people where English was not their native language, which made it a lot easier to, if somebody asked you a question and you weren't sure, you could just like kind of say with a little bit of confidence, or you didn't even have to have that much confidence. You're just like, yeah, I think that's it. But I had to relearn a lot of English when I was planning those lessons. It was actually a lot of work for some of this stuff. I remember the first lesson I ever put together during my certification period. It was the passive. Oh man, what was it called? The uh, the passive something. This is not helpful for the viewer, but it's like when you set up the sentence backwards, where instead of saying like he jumped over the fence. I think it's if you say like the fence was jumped over by him. And you know what? In the book that I'm reading by Stephen King on writing, on how to write, he said never write in the passive. What's the I wish I knew. It's right on the tip of my tongue. The passive something. You guys get it. If you guys took English, it was one of those things that I was like, I don't ever remember learning this, but that was my first lesson I ever gave, and I had to spend a lot of time reteaching myself. So there's a little tidbit for you guys that nobody cares about, but just wanted to get that off my chest. It's been weighing pretty heavy all these years. Anyways, it's been a good week. We got snow on the ground. It's cold outside. I need to go for a run. I slept in today. I haven't run yet. No caffeine. I had a terrible headache yesterday. I think it's because I know I've talked about not being on caffeine recently. I'm off coffee, but I've been having some caffeine. I've been having black tea, and then I have some electrolyte tablets that have some caffeine. And yesterday, Friday and Saturday, and also today, but I went no caffeine at all. No tea, no nothing. And yesterday I had a pretty bad headache. I felt lousy, and I think that's probably the lack of caffeine. But today, woke up feeling pretty good for the most part. I just shaved my mustache, and the dry air, it's razor burn. It hurts. I'm playing injured on this podcast today. Okay, guys? I shaved my manly mustache, and it stings a little bit. Okay? I didn't use shaving cream. I didn't use after cream, whatever that's called. I, as I normally do, put a little water on there and said whoop, whoop, whoop with the razor that I have. A nice Bic. No, a Gillette. A Gillette 5-blade. I mean, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but I have so much facial hair that I need all 5 blades to get rid of it. It's a pretty big situation going on my face here. You know, a lot of people, they think they have big mustaches. I have at least 8 or 9 whiskers on my mustache, so it's it's pretty much a world record, I think, if I had to guess. Good to be here though. It's Sunday. The sun is kind of out. Not really. The snow is melting. Got a lot of snow a couple days ago, which is pretty typical, I guess, for this time of year. But I got the fireplace going in the background. Nice vibes in here. It's a little chilly. I got a blanket beside me. And we're here to have a good time, man. I'll tell you what. I've got a lot of stuff to chat about. I did a lot of shows this week. I've got some either physical or mental blockades going on in my head that have caused some weird things that I'll talk about. I did a show, got a hat, got a free hat from Moe's Barbecue. If you're watching the video, you're about to see how and why I don't wear hats. I tried to become a hat guy with my hair situation, and I might have to become a hat guy, but I tell you what, normal hats do not fit my head. I can't see myself right now, but I've seen myself in the mirror with hats like this, and it's not a good look. It's a flat bill hat, and I look pretty ridiculous. They're just too big. My head is too small. The funny thing is, the show that I did, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, but the show I did gave everybody one of these hats. And the back of the hat here, if you can imagine, if you're not watching, the back of the hat basically was kind of like folded up a little bit. I'll do it here and kind of show you. It was kind of folded up, if you can see that, like that. So when I put it on, I didn't realize it was folded. And I put it on, and I was like, oh my gosh, the hat fits my head. Moe's Barbecue gets it, okay? Moe's Barbecue owner apparently has a tiny little peanut head like Ben Dailey does. And they got a hat that fits me. So I was pretty pumped about that. Now, it fits my head. It doesn't look good on my head. So 1 for 2. You can only get a couple things at a time. But I realized that it was folded up there. And when I put it on for real, I look like a 6-year-old child trying to wear an adult baseball cap. So, yet another hat that discriminates against me and people with my size head, which pretty upset about, but what can you do? But it's free, so that can just go collect dust in my closet. But appreciate the hat. They give us a shirt as well. Busy week. Here, let's start going through the week, guys. This is I think this is the busiest week, one of the busiest weeks I've probably ever had, comedy-wise. I did, let me count it, 1, 2, 6 shows. 6 shows, so pretty fun week. Starting on Tuesday, I've been, like I said, I've been trying to work through some new stuff, and was fortunate to do a couple shows where I was able to work in some of the newer stuff. But I did a show on Tuesday in Denver. It was a pretty small show, only a couple people there. But Tuesdays, there aren't a ton of shows going on anyways. So it was nice to be able to do a show on Tuesday. Did it at a wine bar in downtown Denver. Which, I go downtown, or I go kind of throughout Denver quite a bit, but downtown, I'm not there quite very, very often, I guess. I don't even know what it's called, because downtown, I think, is a pretty vague term. So I think I still go downtown quite a bit. But when I think of downtown proper, you know how people use that? Like, do you live in Denver proper? Like, what is this? An English exam? Proper? Yeah, I live in Denver proper. I mean, what's the alternative? No, I live in Denver improper. I live in the illegal area of Denver. It hasn't caught on yet. But no, when I think of Denver, like downtown, I'm thinking Lodo, which, if you're not familiar, that's Lower Doe, downtown. Okay. And as I'm saying this out loud, it's all like lower downtown. That's part of downtown. Why are you talking about this topic, Ben? What I'm trying to say is the show was at a place that I don't go all that often. It's close to the baseball field, the baseball stadium, and kind of a very, it's like a young area. A lot of, I guess there's a lot of stuff going on there, but it's a little out of my interest zone at this point in my life. Being in my mid-30s, I'm not looking to hang at the places where all the 21, 22, 23-year-olds are hanging, trying to get lit up and, bump and grind, if you know what I'm saying. I'm out of the bump and grind phase. I'm in the, give me a tea and a fireplace on the TV and a blanket phase. That's a cool phase to be in. When the winter comes in, you just kind of snuggle up on the couch and enjoy the flames on the 4K television that you paid $200 for last Black Friday. But did a show, at a wine place. Only a couple of people there. So I just ran kind of the new jokes. And Wednesday was a lot of driving. A lot of driving this week. Wednesday I went up to Eagle, Colorado. Did a show in the mountains, which is like 2.5 hours away. So for a school night, that was a pretty long day and night. But went up to a show there. It was very good. It was at Moe's Barbecue. It was like totally packed out. You think like a barbecue place, you're like, what is that? No, it was set up very well. Brought in the chairs, the lighting, the backdrop. The restaurant was like closed at 8 and the show started at 8. So it was like a ticketed event, only people there for comedy. They were selling drinks and stuff. And that was very fun. Did 10 or 12 minutes there to a very hot crowd and enjoyed that quite a bit. Here's the thing that I wanted to mention, and maybe you guys can chime in as to, is this something physically going on, Ben, or is this something in your head? Which is, I have felt, getting the yawns out. I've felt that my throat over the last week, and I noticed this like 9 days ago. So I noticed this last weekend when I was doing shows at Denver Comedy Underground that my throat felt very tight, and I felt the need, and my body needed to swallow, like get a swallow in like every 10 seconds. So, and I could feel it, it's like tight. I don't know if you guys, I've explained this to multiple people, and 100% of those people are like, I don't know what you're saying. I've never dealt with that before. So as I've gone through life, I feel like I have these little things that happen where I'm like, surely this must be happening to everybody and be this thing that everybody has to deal with, this adversity. And I think it's just kind of me. I think I'm a weird person, and my brain and body are a little off. So, some people call that weird. I call it unique, okay? I'm just a unique boy with weird problems that arise every now and again. But I'm assuming that it's because I'm either allergies or like the dry air or maybe a sickness. I haven't felt sick in the sense of like sinuses or cold or like feeling, I haven't really had any issues like that, but I don't know what it could be. I hope it's not in my head, but I felt the need. I felt a tight throat, felt the need to have to swallow. And if you guys have ever, again, let me know if you've ever felt this. If anybody has ever felt this before, it'll make me feel a lot less lonely in this world and a lot less crazy. But I've had it happen before in the past, usually when it's like high stakes shows or public speaking. It only happens once in a while, though, so it wasn't like a concern of mine. But when you're talking, you feel the kind of need to swallow, and if you keep talking but don't allow yourself to swallow, then your body will swallow for you. And if you're talking out loud into a microphone, and then all of a sudden your body just goes and swallows in the middle of a sentence, people see that, and they notice, and it's very weird, and it's awkward, and it's not ideal. Now, the flip side to that, and what I've been trying to manage, is avoiding what I just mentioned happening. And in order to avoid that, you just allow yourself to swallow when you need to. But when you need to swallow every 10 seconds, that's kind of hard to hide as well. So I'm like saying a sentence, allowing to swallow, then keep going. And it's just not a natural vibe that I've been putting off. So that's been very interesting and frustrating. The last couple of days, it's gotten a little bit better. It's not totally gone, but it's gotten much better. And in my heart of hearts, I've had a couple friends tell me, you think it's in your head, Ben? And again, I've had a lot of bouts of mental spirals that have led me into very weird scenarios similar to this. But I don't think, I mean, it's just physically I felt it. And I wasn't even thinking about it. It happened at maybe 6 or 7 times on stage before I was like, I connected the dots to be like, wow, something's wrong with my throat. So I wasn't like thinking about it. I was just going up there without even thinking about it, and it was happening. So I'm assuming it's like something to do with just sickness, just something, inflammation. I don't know. Something that will come and go, hopefully, as soon as possible. But I've dealt with that. I've dealt with stuff like that for quite a while. Throughout my life, where I just overthink things and then it makes it worse. Again, I don't think I'm overthinking this, but it certainly would add up compared to how I've processed things in a negative spiraling way in the past. But it was weird because I did, like I said, Denver Comedy Underground last week, and during one of the shows, I was doing a joke, and I didn't allow myself to swallow. I was trying to get to the punchline, and my throat just shut down and swallowed on its own, which just made me, like I said, kind of like gag in front of the entire crowd. And I had to just be like, I think I said like one more sentence and then just stopped and was like, all right, you guys saw that. We all saw it. This joke's over. It was cut short by whatever weird thing my body just did. But fortunately, I was a little nervous doing it. Some of the shows, because after you start thinking about it, it gets a little bit more in your head. But I think I was trying to pinpoint. It felt like it got worse after I ate. And I was wondering if, like, because I was having some of the black tea and stuff, like, in the afternoon. And I'm like, is the caffeine, if I'm not having it, but then reintroducing it, is that causing something? I don't know. I'm not sure. But again, I'm going to just try to live healthy and wait it out. And we'll see if it's still around. But like I said, I've had a lot of stuff like this, and I've tried to make jokes about it in the past, and I've probably talked about it on the podcast a little bit as well. But throughout my life, I've had periods where I've spiraled in my head to cause like a very weird thing where I overthink things. Starting all the way back in elementary school, I remember thinking so much about breathing and the breathing technique and how you're supposed to be breathing and inhaling that I like got so in my head, I kept like overthinking it. And then every second of every day, I was like, I'm not getting a big enough breath. I was like, every 30 seconds, I'm like, I gotta get enough oxygen. I'm not getting enough breath. So I convinced myself that something was wrong. I convinced myself, needed to get an inhaler. And in a joke that I haven't done in ages, it never really worked that well. It was something I dabbled with early on. Maybe I'll bring it back. But in that joke, I said I got the inhaler, and I said, turns out inhalers don't really help out with mental disorders. So, is that funny? I don't know. But I dealt with that for a little while. And then when I was in high school, I'm sure there's a million examples of this, but here are just a couple of the bigger ones that I remember when I was in high school. And I've surely talked about this before on the podcast, but it's been a minute, so bear with me. But I thought so much about where all of my, like where my tongue was supposed to be while talking. Like I just fixated on where my tongue's supposed to be. Because obviously when we're talking, your tongue is kind of moving up and down, and it's like touching the roof of your mouth, and it's moving around to make the different sounds and enunciate things. And for some reason, I convinced myself, I thought that your tongue isn't supposed to touch the roof of your mouth. I I was like, your tongue's supposed to stay like settled on the bottom of your mouth at all times. So just imagine, just try it. Do a little exercise right here. Pause the podcast and talk out loud to yourself without letting your tongue move and touch the roof of your mouth. I'm going to try it here. I'm going to All right, so I'm talking and I'm not letting my tongue move to like anywhere around the top of my mouth. I'm just keeping it like really low, and I'm keeping it pressed against the bottom of my teeth. Wow, this is, now that I'm saying it out loud, I my senior year, 3 months out of that year, people must have thought I was crazy. But just out of the blue, one day I was just decided, like, you're supposed to be speaking like this. You've been speaking for 15 plus years of your life, and you've been doing it wrong. Let's change it to a different way that feels uncomfortable, sounds uncomfortable. Surely that has got to be the way to speak correctly. And so, and that was senior year, which was 2005 for me. Which I think I don't know when Google came around, but whether it was around or not, I didn't know how to use it, or it didn't have it wasn't built up enough yet to just be like, why am I talking weird? Where do I need to put my tongue and when I'm talking? Like I didn't have the skill set to do the quick search to then be like, you're an idiot, Ben. But I've had periods like that. I've had multiple times where like I'll have body aches or something and convince myself it's, I'm having a heart attack. This one time I was having some pain in my chest. Nothing crazy, but just like something was present for most of the day. So I went to like a 24/7 just walk-in doctor or whatever after work. And I was telling him, like, yeah, my chest is kind of like tight, and it was sketching me out. So I wanted to come here and hopefully have you tell me that I'm wrong. And I swear to God, the doctor, he just goes, maybe you have to fart. And I was like, can I get my money back? I would like my money back, sir. Look, at least if I'm paying you money, you say flatulate. Flatulate, I don't even know if that's a word. Be professional. Maybe you have to fart. I was like, where'd you get your degree, dude? UrbanDictionary.com? What is going on? Urban Dictionary University. Maybe you have to fart. I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. Maybe I do. I've just been holding it in too long. Now my heart has stopped. Now my chest hurts. I mean, how long do you have to hold in a fart for your chest to start hurting? Okay, yeah, I get it. Your stomach hurts. But how long before that gas goes up and you're just like, dude, my neck hurts. I've been holding this fart in for 4 days. Okay, it just keeps rising. It's going to go to my ears and temples tomorrow if I don't let one out. All right, well, I usually don't go full fart jokes on this podcast, but I tell you what, I did it. I did not a fart, but a poop joke at the show last night, and let me tell you what, they did not like it. It was not great. So last night, just to get into where I was, I was at Looney's Comedy Club, Comedy Corner in Colorado Springs. I was hosting for John Novosad, very very funny local legend here in he's in Boulder, but in the Colorado area. Uh, Very funny, very kind, very nice. He's there's quite a few high level comics here in the Denver area in Colorado that are just such kind people, just sweethearts, like people that you're like, wow, this person has so much experience and so much they're so good and they're so funny and they're working hard and they're just so kind. And that's really cool. It's cool to have a kind of people around that you can learn so much from and you're able to ask and they just treat you like a normal person. But he was headlining. I was very excited. It's my first weekend hosting there. So was very excited about that. Went to 2 shows on Friday, 2 shows on Saturday. When I was driving down Friday, I was like swallowing a bunch, and I was like, dude, this is, of course, I'm going to be hosting for the first time at this club. I'm going to just be swallowing every 3 seconds on stage. This will be great. It ended up, it was still a little bit prevalent, but now that I understand that it might be there a little bit, it's easier for me to just pivot, I guess, and allow myself to swallow rather than before when like I said, I wasn't even like aware. I was aware afterwards, like, excuse me. I was aware afterwards, like my throat was kind of tight on stage. That was weird. So while I was on stage, I wasn't like able to be as flexible. I was kind of just like, what's going on? But now it's like, all right, well, if that's going to happen, just go up there. And if it's going to happen, allow yourself to swallow and just try to mask it as best you can. What can you do? But did 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday. The Friday early show was super fun. Did like 10-ish minutes for all the sets. And the late show was a little lighter, maybe 50 or 60 people. But still a good time. The early show on Saturday was the best show. They were a great crowd. Had a lot of fun for that one. And then the late show on Saturday had probably about 100 people. There's a decent crowd there, but they were tight. And it was very funny because that was the show that I tried out the clogged toilet story joke. The poop joke that I mentioned a couple minutes ago. And I've talked about it on previous podcasts, but it's a new story that I've been working on, and I've had some success at shows with it. That has been exciting to be like, okay, I think I've got something here. I still need to, tighten it and make it better, but in general, it's kind of got the elements needed as far as a beginning, jokes throughout, an end. Yeah, it's kind of got the elements that stories need. But last night, with a tight crowd, I did a couple of jokes up top. They were tight, but I got some laughs in there. And then I went to this poop joke, and I think I like set up the story by being like, yeah, and and I clogged a toilet or whatever. I do a setup to just be like right away, like the story's about clogging a toilet. And I heard a couple of people in the crowd be like, ugh. And like, I get it. That's, that can happen. People might be like, that's gross. But also, it's a late show. It's at a comedy club. It's not like I'm doing, a coffee shop at 4 p.m. at an open mic and there's people who are like, what's going on? It's like, this is a comedy show. At 10 o'clock on Saturday, you're all drinking. Okay. So I heard that and I was like, okay, some people aren't into this. But then um it's like a 5-minute joke. So I went through the joke and the first every punchline in the first 2 minutes was pretty much a whiff. Um and then I finally got a laugh like halfway through. Which, I mean, it was a couple minutes of like you're just up there and it's a story, so I'm trying to like give it a little bit more energy and like be in the story. And it was, I mean, at the end of the day, it was fine. It was a tight crowd, so like the other comics mentioned, they're like, yeah, it was pretty tight. So I didn't. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, dude, I just totally whiffed. But it was one of those where you're like, this is a 5-minute story, and you just gotta buckle up and commit. You're like, don't show them that you know that they don't like this. Just keep going. And so, yeah, I got like halfway through. Unfortunately, getting halfway through, there's a couple punchlines that worked, and then it worked, and it ultimately got a couple laughs, and I finished it. And at the end, I was like, all right, thank you guys for sticking with me on that one. You guys weren't a huge fan of that. But then I went into my closer, got a couple laughs, brought it back up, and brought the next comic on. So it was okay. Given that it was a little bit newer and just my first time at the club, I felt a little guilty for throwing in something that's maybe not as tested, or certainly not as tested as some of my other jokes. But I thought, late show, they'll be down for some goofy stories. Excuse me, got the hiccup. Just one hiccup. Is that a thing to get one hiccup? I guess that was maybe a burp that came up so quickly that it was one hiccup. Is that a thing? People are like, I don't have the hiccups. I got the hiccup. I got the one hiccup, dude. It hit me in the middle of my clogged toilet story. Can you believe that? I got the hiccup. But that was an interesting. It's very interesting because I felt actually very encouraged at Looney's. I felt very in control and in the moment and just comfortable. I've kind of battled back and forth, and again, I've talked about it in the past as to why I've been trying to be so healthy and eat healthy and do all these things, is to try to get even keel and mentally and physically feeling as good as possible, just for life in general, obviously, but to also translate to on stage, to be myself. I know that when I feel myself and silly and goofy and with some energy, that before going on stage, it's like, I've got this. I am in control. But as I've gone through the ebbs and flows of my health and mental state and all this stuff, when I'm not feeling great, I don't have that feeling going on stage. You go on stage and you're like, am I going to bomb? And that's not a good mental place to be. And it's frustrating to go through those ups and downs, but at the very least, it's nice with comedy where I know that if I write a lot, if I'm working as hard as I can on making these jokes as good as possible, if I'm getting the reps on stage, maybe I don't feel great and as in control or whatever, I feel a little bit off, but at least I can still deliver these jokes where it's like maybe I'm not connecting as much or whatever the case, but I can still get laughs and I can still go up there and I can still go do the thing. It's like we all want to go up there and feel in the moment and feel in control every time. But as I go through this health journey to try to get more consistent, feeling good more consistently, to be able to take that to stage and go up there feeling in control more consistently, as I'm working towards that, hopefully I'll get there sooner rather than later. But health journeys take a long time. You gotta heal yourself little by little, and it's not an overnight thing. But as I'm doing that, it does feel good to know that all is not lost. It's not like either you feel good on stage and you feel in control and it's great, or everything else is not worth your time and you're failing and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, I can still write. I can still do a lot of these things that um, advance me in comedy, make me better, make me a better writer. Still getting the reps. You're still going through the motions to continue to gain experience and expertise. Uh, and then, once you come out on the other end and hopefully where I'm more in control and feeling more consistent on stage, energy wise and just more in the moment, then I'll be able to kind of combine all that experience and it won't just be like, it's not like I'm going on stage now and gaining nothing from it. So that was a long kind of way to just get to like, it's nice to know that even though if I maybe feel a little in my head and not great on stage or whatever, still working towards and you're still taking steps forward. As long as you're doing, if I'm not writing, if I'm not doing all these things, then maybe I wouldn't be. But I'm doing all the things. I'm trying to be very vigilant and do all my due diligences. Wow, had a stroke there. But that does feel good to know that. With that said, this weekend hosting at Looney's, I felt good. I felt in control. There weren't. I mean, I had the excitement nerves, but it wasn't like the anxiety where you're like, oh my gosh, I have to host this show. I have to start it off. People are asking me questions. I'm trying to talk to people before, and you're like trying to act natural, but you're just thinking about your host set about to come up. No, I was like talking to people and just like, yeah, let me know when I need to go on stage and let's go do it. Let's have some fun. So that, I mean, ultimately that's what you want every time. And I got to a point where that was more common. And I feel like with the health stuff, it kind of brought me down to where I haven't been as consistent with that. So I look forward to getting closer to that because at the end of the day, a lot of jokes that myself and everybody else writes are so nuanced and you have to deliver them in your own voice and who you are. And maybe you can get some laughs if you're not fully doing that, but if you're fully in it in the moment, you're connecting with the crowd, those jokes just work not only better, but you just maximize. You're like, this joke, I delivered it in the best way possible to get the best outcome by connecting with the audience, smiling, being genuine, having the energy that I want to have up there. And yeah, just allow you to kind of level up to where you're like, I'm getting everything out of every set that I'm doing. Rather than, if you're up there and kind of phoning it in or just not fully in it, then, that's not necessarily the place you want to be. But felt really good about that, going down there and just feeling in control. I think hosting more recently has obviously helped me with that. So I do feel comfortable in that host role. And now I just got to build up and get better at working towards some of these longer sets and getting opportunities to maybe feature at some places, or whether it's feature at clubs in and around town, or it's just featuring / headlining, doing these longer sets on shows out of town, whether I'm setting those up or not. Getting and gaining those opportunities will be super helpful. So it was good to watch John Novosad do some longer sets. Any headliner that's very competent and funny, watching them do 45 plus minutes, that's a very different thing. And again, back to what I was mentioning as far as being comfortable in the moment, in control. When you're doing 45 minutes, you have to have that. You have to be in the moment, feel comfortable, show the audience that you're comfortable and in control. If you're not, if you're showing weakness and vulnerability, they're not going to want to go along that ride with you for 45 plus minutes. Okay? Because they're looking at you and they go, he's making me feel uncomfortable. He doesn't know what he's doing. And again, when I'm in control, when I'm feeling in control and in the moment and clear mentally and all these things that I just described, I feel totally capable of doing that. When I'm not feeling in the moment and I'm feeling more anxious and vulnerable or whatever the case is, then it's a little different story. Which is frustrating to think. Like, my competence depends on where I am mentally. But you know what? At the end of the day, it is what it is. That's what it is, Ben. And I've vowed to try to be as healthy as possible and take all the steps I can to be more consistently in that mindset. Now, maybe I live the healthiest life ever and I do everything I have to do to get to that point, and I'm still struggling back and forth, sometimes feeling consistent, sometimes not. But at the very least, I want to, and if that's what it is, that's what it is. I can only do what I can do and take control of the things that I can take control of. And at the end of the day, if being as healthy as possible gets me 50% of the time feeling in control and 50% of the time feeling like a little off, which, by the way, any comedian, anybody who's doing public speaking, things like that, it's not even just public speaking, anything, sports, whatever. Sometimes you're going to be like, I just didn't feel myself or great or 100%. That's okay. I just want to get to as close. I just want to get as optimized as I can as a person, as a human, as a brain. So, yeah, that was Looney's, which was a fun weekend. I'll tell you this, it was crazy. Friday went down there. It's like Colorado Springs is like an hour and 15 minutes from my place, depending on traffic. It snowed on Friday. So I got down there fortunately got down there like right as the snow started, so the drive down wasn't a big issue. But I got there at like 6:30 and then didn't leave until like 11:30, because we had the two shows. And by 11:30 it had snowed a lot. And there were some buddies of mine in Colorado Springs that had stopped by the show, and they're like, dude, the roads are bad. And I was like, oh, man. I was debating. Fortunately, one of my buddies down there offered a couch to sleep on, which I was very close to accepting. But I decided to make the trek home, and it was sketchy, but I'll tell you this. Whenever there's snow like that, because, I mean, we're talking about just like, you don't see the road. Like, the roads, they don't plow them, okay? There's snow all over them. It's just snow, and it's like 20 degrees. It's cold. But leaving at like midnight, there were not many people on the road, obviously because it's late, but also because there's a lot of snow, so there's just not a lot of people on the road. And I just went 30 miles per hour the whole way home. I mean, it's 75 on the interstates. The speed limit was just going 30 the entire time. And, I mean, it took a long time. It was like 2 hours plus. I got home close to 2 a.m. It was one of those where you're like, stay awake. You're tired, but also you're in a situation that's kind of dangerous driving. But I was very careful. I drove 30, made it back, got in my bed, got some sleep, woke up yesterday, like I said, with a bad headache because probably lack of caffeine. But that was a wild drive home. I don't like driving in snow. Okay, maybe a controversial opinion. I don't like it. I prefer dry asphalt with grippiness. That's how I like it, okay? Call me crazy. I don't have four-wheel drive. And I'm very, the show up in the mountains that I was talking about earlier, Eagle, I was paranoid that if there's any snow, I mean, going up on I-70 into the mountains, the interstate, like that, if there's any snow at all, I mean, going up and then coming back down, you're coming down a mountain. If there's any snow, dude, you just fly off the edge of a mountain. No, thank you. Maybe this might be a controversial opinion too, but I don't like falling off mountains. Okay. So that was, fortunately it didn't snow there, but snowed and all worked out well. It's weird with comedy I guess you could say for any job where you're like, oh man, this is bad weather. But also you're like, I can't lose this opportunity. I guess with the jobs, a lot of times it's like, oh, you have to drive into work. But with comedy, a lot of times it's like you get opportunities, and if you have to back out of those opportunities due to weather, due to sickness, due to whatever, I mean, it could be due to a million things, that may prevent you from getting another opportunity through that venue or through that showrunner or whatever the case may be. So it's like this weird, I mean, at the end of the day, if it's like bad enough, you gotta be safe and do the right thing. But also that is something where you're like, oh man, this is my first time hosting here. I'm going down there. I'm driving down there. Which, like I said, the drive down, there wasn't snow yet. So I could have stayed at my friend's if it was bad enough. So anybody listening, mother, father, anybody else, I would have not driven home if I didn't think that my Honda Fit would have been able to make it. So it all worked out well. We are all happy and joyous, and next week's gonna be fun as well. Gonna fly out on Wednesday to do the Blue Ridge Comedy Festival. It's a comedy competition, so we'll see how that goes. Excited for that. Going to be at the Blue Ridge Comedy Club. Haven't been there before, so excited to do that space. Probably see my parents for a couple days while I'm up there, and then when I fly back, I've got quite a bit of stuff. It's a busy December. I think I've got like 16 shows this month. It's like the busiest month maybe I've ever had. So very excited for all that, all the opportunities that I've been getting. Look forward to feeling more in the moment and swallowing less on stage. We'll see. Stay tuned for future episodes, and I will keep you guys updated on the old Benny Throats, With that said, I'm going to go ahead and end the podcast there. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Appreciate you being here, and I will see you guys again next time.